wording, and this is a direct reference from Amnesty International, can be used to go against political non-conformism and can act as for Western influence. And also on the 24th of May, the Council for Promotion of Investment Projects of National Significance made the decision to withdraw a license from 5 bi-language Russian Moldovan TV channels. Their broadcasts stopped in 2023. Now they're stripped of their licenses. The closed media resources are substituted now by European ones, mostly Romanian analogs. And the same thing happens in Ukraine with the language. They pushed away the Russian language, and instead they try to instill English today. Is it dreadful? Yes. But that's the values of the liberal democracy. Number 3, one of the key pre-elections announcements of Sandu was that she would fight against corruption. After 3.5 years she's in power, the Western curators say that the results are quite bad. According to the report on anti-corruption activities, anti-corruption recommendations of this pro-Western structure for the deputy pool is just 16.7% fulfilled. In the law area, 26.7% fulfilled. And the education and science situation is worsening. The number of institutions in Moldova who worked in scientific and research activities reduced against 2022 by 1/3. And this is just against 2022. We're not comparing it against other periods when it was, how they call it, Soviet occupation. We just compare against 2022. It's 1/3 reduction. 47 organizations in total. The number of scientific employees is reduced by 10%. What does it mean? It means that for the current authorities, they do not need Moldovan scientists, educated people. The goal of the Western so-called liberal democracies is the resources of countries where they try to bring their democracies in and force it into countries. And so that people do not oppose this process and do not ask questions, they just want to strip them their intellect and historical memory and scientific basis for their life and life activities. That's what is happening now in Moldova under Sandu. What will happen next? Outflow of young people from Moldova that will try to find opportunities to have education in other countries. Another point, with negative backdrop in socio-economic sphere, Moldova is filled with NATO armaments. The Minister of Defense of Germany, Pistorius, promised that Germany will finance Chisinau acquisition of another 14 Piranha machines, in addition to those 19 that were supplied to the country in 2023, and will also equip the country with the armaments against drones. So it gives the results now. The trust towards Sandu is going down dramatically among the population. Around 75%, according to the poll, does not feel financial stability, are not sure of their future, and the confrontation is growing in the Moldovan society, and that's quite explainable. They proved many times in history that they value their national identity, their historical roots, their cultural code. They show that they can protect them today also. And there were a lot of questions around the situation in the Korean Peninsula. We accumulated all questions we received, and we can comment on them comprehensively. We are concerned about the growing degradation of the situation around the Korean Peninsula. On the 4th of June, Seoul, with the pretext of the necessity to ensure the military preparedness of their forces in the situation of provocations, as official Seoul says, has stopped inter-Korean military agreement as of 2018 that acted as a stabilizing element to stop the parties from unwilling steps, and that's how they lift the formal legal limitations that did not allow them to start artillery strikes in demilitarized zone and propaganda broadcast to the north. And this step of South Korea is leading to escalation and increase of risks of dangerous incidents. According to Americans' logics and their allies, any actions, even the most ruthless, are only aiming at peace and stability. But actually, they always say so. Everything what the North Korea makes is evil, as they say. They even have axis of evil, including Pyongyang into it, but the Seoul authorities should act strategically, independently, and think about their own national interests and start their search to find areas of peaceful situation and avoiding this war conflict that is pending. And we are concerned about how the situation is developing, and the whole world is concerned. The reasons for such dynamics in the region is, of course, the actions of the United States. They are continuously making with their allies various military demonstrations. This is, of course, scaring actions to go against the North Korean threat, as they call it. Destabilizing impact of the situation is also coming from American South Korean so-called consulting group for nuclear planning. And its third meeting is planned for the 10th of June this year. New wave of stress can also be linked to American South Korea military trainings, ALG Freedom Shield, planned for August. Within the framework of this activity, they will start the test for the planned potential actions in nuclear actions. But the collective West is acting like that all the time. Do they do everything for peace and stability and the well-being of Korean people? The methods, though, they are operating lead to something different. And at this backdrop, the concern is about the agreements of the two official parties of the U.S. and South Korea to an agreed three-party test Freedom Edge to respond to the challenges in the Pacific region. The only challenge in this region is actually the policy of the United States of America. There are no other challenges around. And those that can be called potential problems call for collective response. And this again proves that Washington setting the three-party military union with Tokyo and Seoul can not only threaten Pyongyang but also Moscow and Russia. And we look at anti-Russian announcements of Sing-Wan-Sik in Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore on the 1st of June. During his presentation, this high-ranked official of South Korea administration accused Russia of actually letting down the international community because being constant member of Security Council of the UN is receiving weapons from a regime violating the rules. According to him, Russian cooperation with North Korea, scientific, technical, and military provokes stress in the peninsula and impacts the European theater of battlefield. But no proofs. But what is the logic here? Even if we use this logic chain, saying that there is a Russian interaction of recent time, which, as he said, is provoking and destabilizing the area. I want to ask: didn't we witness the tensions in the Korean Peninsula before? Did it start in 2024-23? I mean, these tensions. International organizations, neither representatives of global diplomacy never worked in settlement in the Korean Peninsula. Is that right? No problems whatsoever before? Why then Americans, even those under the United States can say anything, and it goes against their own approaches in the modern history. A Singapore platform for discreditation of Russia was selected by South Korean party to articulate these accusations. No proofs to such accusations, but this is not a coincidence. South Korea, with their announcements, wanted to please the president there, Zelensky, and his Western sponsors. Another provocation of the authorities of South Korean authorities make us doubtful about them sticking to the course they declared publicly many times and proved in bilateral contacts for supporting pragmatic relations with Russia. Can we call them pragmatic relations? This is aggressive rhetoric. Russia cannot stay aside and will continue applying measures to mitigate the threats and ensure its national security. And something else about these double standards of collective West. Just these days, we witnessed a provocation campaign in the media in Western countries where, in a synchronized manner, across 13 largest publications, Western publications, they posted so-called journalism investigations against the Fund for Support and Protection of Rights of Compatriots who live abroad, Russian compatriots. It was a move made through these media, and then it went to other publications. Knowing about the scale and coordinated manner of this campaign, we're sure that this is not journalism investigation, but provocation with participation of special services of unfriendly countries. And what is the goal of this campaign? To discredit the right-protecting fund and intimidate the partners in Europe and also make it complicated to protect the rights of our compatriots. What is happening to compatriots now? They feel so huge pressure, or they try to exile them from countries. Let's look at the Baltic countries. We always speak about that. They push our compatriots, they intimidate them, they force them to decline their links in culture, in humanitarian and historical areas with Russia. They have to stop living in their cultural code. If people say no to that, they are deported. But we're speaking about people who live them permanently, who are residents of these countries, not just visitors. I'm speaking about the Baltic countries, and they are going to lawyers. They seek for protection, and they can have it, legal protection, in the Fund for Support and Protection of Rights of Compatriots. So the Western countries, special services of NATO countries, started attacking the fund. So the accusations are articulated. They are not in line with any logic or common sense. Allegedly, the fund is linked to Russian special services and promoting Russian influence at the West to destabilize governments and disinform the societies, the nations, and as if it is threatening the security of European Union countries. And being under sanctions of EU is actually charged with attempts to avoid them. Very absurd, very illogical information aggression indeed. Never heard of anything like that before. So let's make it clear. This fund is a unique, independent, non-commercial organization. Just from its inception in 2011, it offers legal consultations and sometimes material assistance. Well, I can admit that it's a rare case. This is not their core activity, but it sometimes happens. They assist Russian citizens and compatriots who are in challenging situations abroad, because sometimes the situations are so critical for our compatriots that the fund tries to find financial support. But the core activity is legal support for these people, protection of rights. Under the auspices of the fund, the centers of legal support for compatriots are working various legal sections in the media. This is all available. You can have a look at it. No threat to the security of Europe. They are offering consultations for compatriots, for Russian citizens. They are improving legal literacy among Russian communities, including among young people. What's wrong with that? This is the basis of democracy. What is the problem? We are speaking about right-protecting activities, and that's the key element, as we were told from the West for many years, the key element of democratic structures. Moreover, the fund is fully sticking to its commitments in abiding to national legislations. In the areas where they operate. The justified and important area of activities of the fund is financing and paying for lawyer services. This category of costs is in demand because the West is putting pressure, and anti-Russian activities, politicized conflicts against our compatriots. We speak about the Baltic countries, the U.S. and Western Europe, and the Ukraine, not to mention. Acts of aggressive discrimination of Russians are growing, and more cases in national and international courts due to illegal actions of various countries violating the human rights. Illegal deportation is also a case I just mentioned. Various violations of ownership rights, also mentioned that a lot, and enhancing the time frame for legal procedures and violating other legal norms with this alleged threat to security, sometimes based on secret confidential data. They start cases against active Russian compatriots. That what is imputed into them.
Not specific crime or criminal deeds, but the intention to perform one. Clear enough that people are running for help, and they do find it in the fund. And the fund, to stress, is absolutely open and transparent. Well, I don't know, with full respect, and I think that it's the openness and glassness they publish their documents. They, according to the standards of NGOs in Russia, they fully report in the way they should. So that is why those pseudo-investigators found a lot of information about its activities in Internet. Of course, they provided it unobjectively, but as usual, but they had to inform the audience that the fund indeed is fully performing and providing reports as was the request. So and so far they did not pay attention to that. What I think is that time now requires, and the compatriots, I think, expected for us. The fund would be operating, and the journalists, by the way, I mean you, I cannot invite because I do not I'm not involved in the activities, but I can encourage you. Just address them for interviews, for comments. Just go and find yourselves the truth about the activities of the fund. Not only the information that is provided by pseudo-investigators, but please ask the fund directly, and I'm sure they will not refuse. And you can send your request to Alexander Udaltsov, because he always is very quick and substantially reacting to the interviews, and I'm sure that he will do his best. But we, of course, will follow all this drama. By the way, a very important date that we had yesterday, 6th June, It was 50 years of diplomatic relationship between our country and the Republic Trinidad and Tobago. And our relationship during this half of a century has developed well, and the basis was friendship, mutual respect, commitment to norms of international law, and we value the weighted approaches of the country to the key problems of the modern time. And we are ready to develop our interaction bilaterally and multilaterally for the benefit of our peoples, to make up the fair multipolar world. And I would like to wish peace, prosperity to our Trinidad and Tobago friends. A little bit of details about the Day of Russian Language that we celebrated yesterday. According to the decree of the President of Russian Federation, the Pushkin Poetry Festival has acquired the status of All Russian. The birthday of our great poet is celebrated as the Day of Day of Russian Language, because he contributed immensely to the development of Russian language, which is uniting factor for different religions and culture of people speaking Russian. It's not only the language of the great literature, but the breakthroughs in science. And by the way, the works of arts and modern education, which our country is proud of, rightfully, and the people who were educated here in Russia. Very important is his role for global information interaction and dissemination of knowledge. Just one number: more than 250 million people of the planet speaks Russian, which provides access to technical to the fruits of technical progress, culture, and expands the opportunities for education online. The significance of Russian language is stressed by the inclusion of the UNO program of the calendar of symbolic dates of the organization. Multi-language is an opportunity for all, and every country and every people is concerned about that. And Russian language has a special role. It acquired the status of the official language from the very inception. It's one of the 6 languages used at the meetings of the UNO, and in the documents, Russian helps a number of delegations to participate in the discussions and share their views and experiences. And the festivities and memorial events are conducted all over the world, and Russian missions abroad, associations of teachers of Russian, and compatriots unions and graduates of Russian universities living all over the planet traditionally organize thematic events, and you might learn about it if you go to the accounts of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in social media. Of course, large-scale activities are performed in the platform of international organizations, and the UNO. We gave a gala party, and where there was poetry and given illustrations to his works. And at the UNESCO also there's a large-scale program with exhibition, round tables, seminars for linguists and translators. It's movie showing and other events. So, needless to say that we should thank our compatriots, which made this the cause of their life, to support Russian language and education of their children, not only their own children, by the way, in the Russian language and teaching them Russian and preserving our culture. Cannot but mention the International Organization of Russian Language, which was founded in 2023 at the initiative of the President of Kazakhstan, and is open for accession to all states without exception. And Mr. Lavrov sent congratulatory message to the participants of this organization. So I would like, in conclusion of this introductory part, to say that there's a very interesting historical fact of the attitude of humanitarian culture. Those who review themselves exclusive and civilized, historical, well, we were talking about the crimes during colonialism, material and moral responsibility in front of the countries they had exploited and peoples they oppressed. One example of the barbaric theft of Crimean heritage during the Crimean War of 1853 and 56. It was occupied. The peninsula was occupied. The way they behaved, so-called civilized Europeans, exactly the same as they are trying to behave now when they are not rebuffed. They are behaving in the same way they did during 1812 Napoleon War. By the way, the Russian army did not behave this way during the occupation of France in 1814. And that was mentioned many times. So let's get back to what the civilized Europeans did during the Crimean War. At that time, as is known, the objects of historical heritage of Sebastopol were suffered most because the military activities were there. The cult institutions of Sebastopol were ruined completely or partially, and the Brits, of course, were very active since the fall of 1855 in Sebastopol and the outskirts. In the territory, partially there's the State Archaeological Historical Museum, Hersonas Stavrichesky. So the colonel of William Monroe of the Regiment 39, he was a famous botanist. He organized excavating with 50 to 60 people every day attracted. That's quite a habit of the Brits when they want to steal something from the peoples of Africa, Asia, and Greece, by the way. In the course of excavation and diggings, they found ceramics, marble pieces of gravestones, and the artifacts. The Greek confirmed that they were sent to Great Britain, and some were given to the British Museum, and some sold to private collections. And no one was in a hurry to apologize or materially reimburse the damage. Besides Sebastopol, the Kerch was damaged culturally because it was occupied by on the 12th of May in 1855. The city was robbed, and historically Kerch has been suffering. Well, in all the periods, things were stolen there, and was and the museums were robbed. The marauders took over the ancient museum pieces, and half of the museum was clad with pieces of marble and statues and monuments. And when it was made public, the European press, the Brits imposed responsibility exclusively on the Turkish soldiers. Well, you know, that's under somebody else's flag, so proxy wars. They know how to do it. There's irrefutable evidence that the British soldiers were directly involved in all those robberies. They occupied Kerch, and they started their archaeological diggings with the direct sanction of the British cabinet at instruction of the military minister, Lord Panmure. They organized a special commission to arrange those diggings and selection and grabbing the museum pieces of the Kerch Museum to replenish the British Museum with antiquities. They are still there, by the way, and as a confirmation, we, in the text of today's briefing, will put the links to the exposition of the British Museum. It will be accessible with the text of the briefing the way we usually do. So they were robbing, they were stealing from Sebastopol, Kerch, and they continue to do so. Those who declare that they want to bring in civilization and democracy to those cities, to those regions, and to those peoples, specifically to our people, but actually, as we many times said, they just need our resources. And even our historical artifacts. And I would remind you that there are a lot of important events going on today, but the most important is 12th June, the Day of Russia, and we, of course, will celebrate it because this is a great holiday, and we will place in the account of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I'm ready for questions. We are going to have a hybrid format, online and both. Certainly, we will have questions from the audience. Please grab a microphone. Good morning. Could you sort of recap or review the preliminary results of the Bolivian minister visit and our relations? You know, that's very important for us, the results of the St. Petersburg on official visits on June 5th to 7, President Bolivia. Of course, I'm going to comment only the parts of the visit that already finished. Vladimir Putin on the table has the information and the results and the busy meetings with the leaders of the key authorities and economic operators allowed us to promote major investment projects of cooperation with Bolivia. And I would remind you that the basis of Russian-Bolivian relations last year, it was 125th anniversary, is to build up a more democratic and just and fair world and sovereign development of our peoples and basic attitude to the international law. And we are ready to share our knowledge and technology with Bolivia to streamline in this friendly country their own value-added productions, qualified employment, and practically that's already a reality. In the nuclear center and nuclear technology development, radiopharmaceutical substances to combat oncology already is there, and another is agricultural processing at a high-tech level. The same approach is applied to Bolivian lithium production development. It's the best technologies and practices of direct and ecologically sound extraction of this precious metal. We think that this will serve a weighty factor to make Bolivia one of the advanced center of production of elements which are so much in demand now. And besides, there's multi-year successful work on Bolivian fields by Gazprom, which is, of course, mutually beneficial, developing very dynamically, aimed at providing sustainable development of gas industry of the country. And also would like to mention that Russia and Bolivia, as multinational states with thousands of years of history, with rich, versatile cultures and traditions, are partners for cultural exchanges. And some statistics can quote, more than 3,000 Bolivians were educated in Russia, high qualifications acquired. So the tradition continues. We have hundreds of students from Bolivia. And I can also say that this was the basis always of our interaction, and I think that's a great foundation to move on. So we are very optimistic about the future of our relationship and are aiming at strengthening our traditional friendship and equality and strategic partnership relationship. Another question, if I may. So the head of European diplomacy, Borrell, accused Russia of meddling into European elections. We spoke about that many times. The elections to European Parliament, of course, are dirty, not corresponding to the principles the Euro Parliament itself has been declaring for so many times. And we remember how many times those countries were, some countries were accused and criticized for allegedly non-conforming with the principles. Look what's going on now on the verge of the elections. Information campaigns, searches, pressures, spy mania button is on again, looking for a hand of Russia or Peking. And what else? And that story about alleged Russian hackers, always much in demand, always very well consumed. This all is done to create electoral advantage for the candidates, as they think, the candidates they need, they want in the parliament. The basis of their activities, those candidates, is Russophobic attitude. That's the trend of the collective Western. They don't even conceal it. They don't make it secret. And that is why they wanted to do this kind of thing. Well, for those who have, they are searching those who have not even relations with Russia, but just an alternative opinion to what was postulated or stipulated trend. Those who have a relevant agenda and who wants to hear the voice of the people in the parliament and give an opportunity to the people of the countries to be heard with their problems, with their issues, because to listen to them that Moscow is to blame of all. I mean, in the countries of the European Union, they have much more to do because their economies are collapsing. They are not very much sure of their energy future because they are forcefully cut off from Russian energy resources, and they are they have issues with their own self-identification. Look what goes on with the human rights that they were at the forefront, and now it turned out that it doesn't work at all, and it was just a rhetoric show off. That's what is their values besides multi-genders and sorry for the LGBT agenda. They have nothing to offer either to their own peoples or global community. Everybody's talking about polycentricity, multipolarity, and the basis, the foundation for those new centers which are already there and are going to be born soon. The economic development is at the forefront, scientific progress, and civilization element, of course, culture, historical development, and different values that make up a core for this oasis of global civilization. When a new center, which already is here, or those who will appear in the future, they have things to offer for civilization development. And what can the Western Europe offer now?
Okay, fine. Cutting various organs from one place and putting them to the other. Okay, fine, but probably new hormones, medicines, so that these organs, not internal body organs, to feel more comfortable. Okay, fine. Or probably inventing another 100 genders. And what's next? What else? What can they offer? Overcoming crisis? No cases like that where Western Europe could play a role, though they took such commitments. Look at the situation in the Middle East. They were members of the quartet, but they were pushed back, and they are glad that they are pushed by the United States. The situation is catastrophic with the human rights. It's not just a problem with human rights in the Gaza Strip. This is a huge tragedy that is happening there now. Where are these developments in humanitarian and human rights area developed in Western Europe? Why not applying what they were so proud of and what they promoted across the whole world? That's where you can say your word. But no, that's the problem. That's why all these candidates with old pro-Washington agenda that are now assembled in the European Parliament, they need such support, artificial support based on Russophobia and spy mania, and search for someone to blame. outside of Western Europe. To comment the results, it's a bit too early. And now we just can comment how it goes. And we do it in the same manner as those European countries do that are now having those elections into European Parliament. When we were having election of the President of the Russian Federation in 2024, their conclusions on the process and the results of the voting in Western countries made several months before the election started. That's why we will be also commenting on what happens out there now within the framework of the standards, within the framework of the standards for the process, and then we'll look at the results. Ria Novosti is with us, please. Thank you. Ria Novosti, Kristina Rodriguez. Maria Vladimirovna, if I may, I would like to ask you to comment on the recent announcement of Landsbergis, Lithuanian Minister of External Affairs, on the rationale of supplies and of application of Western weapons to strike not only Russian cities, but, if needed, the territory of Belarus. Thank you. Well, I think that you call him Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania. I think it's too much for him. I think he's just a crazy guy. A person who is paid for diplomacy cannot call for starting a new bloodshed process. Something's wrong. It means that he's mentally not very healthy. But from what he was talking about, this is my conclusion. I'm not commenting on his aggressive rhetorics and his announcements not in line with any international practice, because I've already qualified his mental status. I just want to remind you that according to a new war military doctrine of a common state, any aggression against Belarus will be qualified by Russia as infringement into our joint territory, with all quite serious consequences. And I would like to remind that to such actors that in the territory of our brother republic we have a regional group of armed forces, Russian defense complexes and tactic nuclear weapons that assist Belarus army to ensure the security of the western borders of the common state and the CSTO. And the key thing, you remember, we already mentioned that with such statements, Collective West is teaching the population to an idea that the status of the world is not normal. They make them get used to the ideology of war. Again, with such statements, they confuse and they destroy their media that do not have an opportunity to prepare a good material or a reportage showing that such statements can actually have serious consequences for those who articulate such statements and for nations of countries on behalf of which such statements are made. The media of the West is paralyzed, and that's why such dysfunction is resulting in the fact that the population of such countries do not understand the serious nature of the moment when unrealistic actors like Landsbergis speak about things that are so dreadful. Obviously, nationalistic words with aggressive rhetorics. And Russia Today is with us now. I can see you. Good morning, Maria Vladimirovna. Two questions, if I may. Yes, please. First question is about Germany. For many years, we thought Germany is an adequate Russian partner, and just recently, Vice Chancellor Habeck said that it is possible to use weapons to strike Russia. From your perspective, is it possible now to speak about adequate relations between Germany and Russia? If yes, then how soon will they be balanced? I can answer your question, but before I would like to make a theoretical comment first. The thing is that the authorities of Germany are not controlling themselves. They are not implementing the will of the people of Germany. They are implementing the points that are forced on them or that are proposed to them in a forced manner by their moderators. And who are they? Of course, the administration in Washington. That's why when we are speaking about bilateral relations, to qualify them as you say, as before they were perceived as, and Germany was perceived as one of the most adequate countries towards Russia, we should do it with a comment that, with a note that they are not independent, they are not implementing the will of their society, their nation, and the fact that people in Germany, the majority of them, would want to have pragmatic relations with Russia, mutually beneficial, efficient, working in the interests of their country, and they didn't. They thought that these should be win-win relations. They were not against it. So this mandate, this message, the leadership of Germany cannot implement today because this is not in line with the order from Washington. And that's the key thing, I think, to know about our bilateral relations. And now, let's analyze the status. Actually, with the German efforts, again, and we understand it very well, they are backed by curators from Washington. So with their efforts, both Germany and their curators' bilateral relations between Russia and Germany are undermined. You've seen over the recent years, and you see it now, how German leadership is totally demonizing everything related to Russia. Moreover, it's not only about Russian media or Russian people or our compatriots, but it is about everyone who is friendly with them, who is making joint business and work together. They are starting a spiral of spy mania, but this is their favorite thing. And when I would remind you, when during, well, it was journalism investigation, as far as I remember, they highlighted, they identified the spying activities made by American Special Services who were hearing the phones of the Chancellor of Germany, Ms. Merkel. Nothing was done. No diplomats were withdrawn. No information campaign about American spies. No exile for American agents. No one was arrested. Okay, fine. What does it mean? It means that curatorship made by Washington against in Germany is 100% in everything, even in this, in Germany, in ensuring their national security. You know, talks of German's chancellor is quite sensitive material indeed, but even in this, they do not have an opportunity to manifest independence. And why speaking about other countries then? And the voices to support bilateral relations are blocked immediately. And Berlin said that they share the idea and support the philosophy of strategically defeating Russia. But there is no other question that comes next. What will happen next? What will happen to them? After Germany is, according to requirements and then actions, the United States stripped Germany of stable power resources they received from Russia. Now German businesses are leaving, and then what's next? No one is calculating the consequences of such strategic defeat of our country. It won't happen. Probably they rely on this development, but they should calculate anyway. So with such approach, speaking about any normalization of relations is not the point now. And question number 2, if I may. You already mentioned Moldova or Moldavia, which is represented here by Moldova courtyard, and all participants noticed it. Everyone visited. Have you visited? I didn't pass by, but I haven't yet walked into it. It looks so beautiful, and I think that probably it's very tasty out there. I will visit. Yes, the courtyard is very beautiful and tasty and very hospitable, Moldova style. But just several minutes ago, you mentioned that they are pressing their media, and at night, probably you've seen in social networks, performers came from Moldavia, and they are de-announced, and they are repressive. Their performers. Very bad situation. And everyone going into Moldova courtyard, everyone says, get back to us. But Santos regime tries to bring the country into European Union. So is it only a forced step to get into EU? And as Ellen Short just mentioned, I will scare Romanians in getting to EU. But actually, the European Union is forcibly entering and exiting. Just look at the procedures, lengthy procedures, and I think they are not yet finalized, of divorce of London and Brussels, Great Britain and EU. At the same time, the most interesting thing is that this is very surprising. Turkey, economic indicators over recent decade proved the development of the country. Public life, political life were going in line with their principles. They have their specificity, and the democratic development and political life are developing very rapidly. Turkey is actively participating in international life. Well, it seems like everything goes fine for implementing promised at a point of time, promises to include to join the EU. Why not? Why countries who are not in line with the basic principles that is a requirement for candidates and will never be in line with those principles? Why such countries, and despite the will of the nations of such countries, why they are forced into it? But countries who want to join, and in objective indicators, in economic indicators, first of all, why I'm speaking about that? Because European Union initially was created as an economic organization, and moreover, these countries improved step by step their indicators necessary to enter the European Union. They are not let in, though they asked for more better indicators. Nevertheless, and Turkey is an example here. Why? What does it mean? It means that we are speaking about double standards in each and every aspect of Western approach towards international agenda. I'm not speaking about their internal life, it's their business. But if they are part of international community, since part of them are members of the Security Council, constant or rotating, if they want to become leaders, as they say, in global affairs. So you have to set the criteria for your attitude towards the world and eliminate this double standard system. And this is just crap, not double standards. And the Moldovan courtyard, I will definitely visit it. I will tell them that you are coming. Please take a cue for me out there. I will definitely visit them. So you understand, if a couple of years ago someone tells me that a meme and a hashtag is a created phrase as a response towards what happens in Moldova, Moldovan language does exist, well, I would thought that it is unbelievable to have a meme like that coming from us. But when we meet colleagues and friends or even strangers who come from Moldova to Russia, or we meet them somewhere abroad, we say hello with this phrase, Moldovan language does exist. We go and make photos together and make videos. How is it possible? We are forced to live in a theater of absurd. They tell us that men are not men anymore and not women, and I do not know. Well, how do they call it? Non-binary persons. And women are not actually women, but whoever they are. And inside every person, you can have those and that unlimited number of persons. And they say that this is normal. And the same thing happens in other areas of life. They tell Moldovans that they are not Moldovans. They say to Ukrainians that they should speak English, they should forget Russian because they have never spoken it before. According to the Kiev regime, the heroes of global civilization become anti-heroes, and traitors now are new heroes. So this is the confusion of terms that goes across all areas of life, because this is the approach lobbied by the West in global affairs. So let's move on. Media Corporation of China, are you with us? Yes, please. Hello. Thank you. Hello, Maria Vladimirovna. Two questions. First, China and Russia are having cross years of culture, as we all know. How do you assess the current situation and the prospects of bilateral cooperation between our countries in humanitarian sphere? Thank you. Well, we have relations in humanitarian and cultural sphere, and they are important element in our bilateral relations. Our relations are of comprehensive manner, partnership and strategic interaction, and the meaning of such contacts in cultural and humanitarian sphere in strengthening mutual respect is hard to overestimate. Our countries are linked with a lengthy border, joint border, and also friendly cultural ties. Yes, you put it right. According to the instructions of the heads of our countries, 2024-25 are cross years of culture for our countries, and this is the 9th interstate thematic sharing exchange project. Before, we had the years of the Russian and the Chinese languages, year of youth exchange, interregional cooperation, science, innovations, media, tourism, and sport. And this new cross-action cross-activity is contributing to this good tradition, and it is especially important because it is going under the auspices of the celebrating by our countries the 75 years of setting the diplomatic ties.
Well, the ceremony of opening took part in Peking on May 16 in the presence of the heads of the states, and there was quite an big interest to the event from big corporations and the regions of the two countries. The program is very busy, vivid, brilliant, covering different areas. It's exhibition, it's folk art, it's movies. Everyone can find something he likes. So I think that the prospects of such cultural exchanges, they're high, and they will be growing year on year. And by the way, in the period of the pandemic, the dynamics of the context, of course, was reduced for reasons we know. Now there's a dramatic comeback to our interaction, exchanges, and contacts. Many outstanding musicians and performers went with concerts to China, and the different exhibitions and shows and a number of other events became very symbolic for our countries. Festivals of national cultures conducted both in Russia and China, a fair of international fair of culture and also the Hey events. So we and we included a lot of events in those cross years, and I'm sure it is going to be regular. events. Well, active work is done by the cultural centers in our countries. They were opened on the reciprocity basis. The Russian Cultural Center in China is the center of gravity for those who is interested in our country. Exhibitions, movies, lectures, master classes, library, courses of Russian language. It's all accessible to all. We can invite all of you to join in. So huge prospects, very promising. Thank you. Second question. What is your view of the role of the BRICS and CSO, SCO, and what do you think is the contribution to the bipolar world, multipolar world? Well, I think that that's exactly the first powerful foundation of the multipolarity. Well, there are some natural global centers that were been forming for years or centuries even, but there are others points of gravities or centers that were created exactly for to reflect the realia for the future. And Shanghai Organization of Cooperation and BRICS are such facilities or such units that picked up the trends and accumulated the work of the countries to solve mutual issues. And they were sort of planned and programmed to become the centers in the world, in a polycentric world, to be the poles of the polycentric world. So the role is one of the critical, one of the key ones. And importantly, they were based on very different principles than those facilities that claimed in the West to be global centers. They are not based on the principles of hegemony or imperialism or principles of exclusivity or commandment system or subordination of others, of someone to others, or segregation. They are absolutely open, very equal. They are mutually respectful, if we can put it this way, for both the members inside those communities and those outside. So I think that it's a very large-scale future that's in store for them, I'm sure. And it's important that the experience that has been accumulated there, as I mentioned already, to possibly be more rolled out and copied while setting up maybe some other facilities like that. Because this experience is positive and constructive, doesn't lead to aggression, chaos. It leads to creation, harmonization of interests, and taking into account all those mutual sometimes concerns and mutual aid and support to all those which unfortunately in the modern world of the recent decades somehow became irrelevant. Look at the lexicology, at the, we hear from the Western countries. Those are the words of hatred, aggression, the words that disentangle, that separate people. You practically will not hear or see or read in their statements of the Western representatives, and you will not find words like friendship or compassion or mutual help, or I'm not saying anything about love. Everything in the trend of an endless attempt to implement their request for segregation, whatever they can invent to segregate people for any criteria, that all works. And what unites people, what leads us to peace, you will not find it in their statements. And all those words and terminology, and they are put in the documents of those facilities and BRICS, first of all. Let's move on. We have Lynn, Moscow Post. I can see you. It's an online question. I can hear you, so we need your sound. Can hear you. Moscow Post. Can someone help us with the sound? No sound. Can you try again? No sound. So my request to our technicians to somehow do something about. We will get back to you. Reuter with us. I can see you. Yes. Thank you. Maybe it's a stupid question. Don't hesitate. Okay, I won't. There are traditions you shouldn't reject. Well, whether there were discussions with Washington, maybe in some channels, possible ceasefire in the Ukraine. And if yes, could you give some light? I don't have information like that. I have no information in this respect. If you somehow specify what you mean, maybe we might understand the sources of your information then. If there are details, I will be able to comment. So far, there's nothing I can share with you. Thank you very much. Again, let's try Moscow Post. No sound. Moscow Post, can you hear us? Yes, she can hear us, but we cannot hear her. Okay, let's try someone else. Again, please do something with the sound. We have CBC TV. CBC TV, are you with us? Hi. CBC, Brilliant Islamova. That's I love the sound of your name. Thank you very much. Mr. Galuzin, Deputy Minister, gave an interview to TASS, and he accused Armenia of Moscow was concerned very much about the activities of this mission, whether Russia informed France to curtail the activities of the mission. Well, you know, we have not notified anyone. We right away were very public about that. I have no doubt that the French diplomats in Moscow not only visit restaurants, I'm sure sometimes they can work. They work, though they limit very much their work time. So actually, exactly because we do have some suspicions as to how qualitatively they perform their work. So right away, we started to publicly and openly speak about our negative attitude to the mission of European Union in Armenia. And we commented more than once the confrontation essence of this semi-military presence of EU in the Armenian territory. We don't have to find any proof anywhere because exactly they're anti-Russian, anti-Azerbaijani, and anti-Iranian. The objective of the mission is very clear and obvious. More so when NATO countries started to get connected to them. Well, it became clear to all. Nothing but destabilization of the military situation and transforming the region into another arena of geopolitical competition cannot be expected anything from this kind of initiatives. And it's not by incident that I said that another competition arena. Well, it has been unstable in the region, yes, but there was such a good chance for stabilization of the whole situation, to solve this or to settle this multi-year crisis, to unblock those capabilities of humanitarian communication and development of economy and infrastructure, transport, logistics, and all. and totally to give some stability to the regional agenda. So the chances all were there, and the work started and was quite fruitful. And right away, the West was unhappy about that because they don't see this region as a region of stability, peace, and security. So that is why the mission, hence the mission. So we are sure that all those burning issues in the Caucasus region can and must be solved collectively by the regional states, exclusively in the interests of the countries of the region, without interference from outside. Okay, let's move on. Arab News, are you with us? Arab News, are you with us again? No? Okay. Open TV, TV channel, are you with us? No, can't see or hear them. Okay, Pakistan, PTV, are you welcome? Good morning, Maria Vladimirovna. Allow me to have two questions. First, recently, Foreign Ministry and Ministry of Justice addressed the President of Russia with a request to exclude Taliban from the list of terrorist organizations. Today, the Taliban representatives are present here at the forum. Is it a signal to the possible satisfaction of this request to exclude Taliban from the list? You know, let's split the question because while participation is no signal, it's a routine work of interested economic operators in the development of their economy and economic relations, specifically with Russia, and possibly they will find some other partners, not only from Russia. As for the second block of your question, we more than once said that Russia intentionally and consistently developing multi-vector cooperation with current Kabul administration, which has been governing Afghanistan for 3 years almost, working at excluding Taliban from the national terrorist list. Well, it just reflects the recognition of the reality, objective reality that we now have after the flight of USA and NATO from Afghanistan and the collapse of the regime in 2021. It's the reflection of the tasks that they have to solve in the name of stability and safety. Those are the problems that were multiplied by the NATO and Americans during the 20 years of their destructive presence in Afghanistan. And those who require instant solution, it's not an expediency of the moment. It's just exactly what will allow them to solve their relevant issues for the sake of regional stability and safety. Now, not even for bilateral relations, but for the regional safety, because it's part of the global safety, because the problems that were generated from the territory of Afghanistan for many years, situation of stability in the world. Second question, the Minister of Defense, Boris Pistorius of Germany, stated that Germany should make steps to prepare itself for possible war in 2029. What is Russian attitude to this statement? Or is it also a sign that the West, by all means, start the war similar to Second World War? We just said that the leadership of Germany is not independent. Unfortunately, they lost an opportunity to have a sovereign policy inside Germany and outside of it. It means that all those statements are coordinated from Washington. And what Washington needs, another global chaos. And my feeling is that the ideologists of liberal democracy in the United States are just craving for getting Europe involved in the conflict. The current level of problems is not enough for them. They need so big, artificially made competitive advantages which would provide them postponing their economic collapse for some more time. What is the way to do it? To make European continent confront each other. So those are the facts that are in favor of this kind of analysis. And as for your question as to what Pistorius thinks, well, actually, in my perspective, the German themselves should ask this question of the government. And what does the government of Germany try to get the German people involved? Well, it's clear what they have dragged them out from stable and reliable energy cooperation with Russia. So they have dragged the people out of it, and what they are dragging them in. So now, to buy American liquefied gas, they should stand in queue for the permission at their own expense to buy what they need for the development and the existence not only of their economy but the country in itself. So they now have to ask for permission, and it's not a fact that they will allow them to use this liquefied gas or not. That's how they build up the relationship currently among the allies by the United States with those who allowed themselves to lose their sovereignty and not implementing their national interest, and took on board to service somebody else's national interest. Are we having... Well, we don't have much time left. ORF Radio Austria, are you with us? Yes, thank you. We are here. Good morning. Colleagues from Pakistan asked already about the Taliban in the St. Pete Forum. What Russia hopes to get from cooperation with Taliban economically? Since I think I more than once addressed this topic, is it possible I ask a clarifying question to you? And maybe we will thus expand my answer. Why you in Austria so much concerned about that, as to how we are going to build up our relationship with Taliban now in power now in Afghanistan? Well, my question is why? Why are you so much interested or concerned? Because it's not... Well, because no one in the world wants to have cooperation with Taliban, and we are curious why, and why they did not want to have relationship with Taliban. As you said, the Western countries did not want to build up relations with Taliban. Well, I don't know why politicians are doing things, but I think it's worth asking this question to your Austrian politicians. Why have they not been building up a relationship with Taliban when it became clear that they're in power?
If they say to you that they are on the list of list dedicated to terrorism activities, you can clarify, your politicians supply money to terrorist Kiev regime, and that's okay. And they are accelerating in these activities. It's not a question to you personally, but to everyone who is offering this theme in this particular manner, seeing agitage and because of such contacts of Moscow. Did I explain it? I can say there where problems emerged in 20 years of NATO presence and exacerbated the problems existed there before: drug trafficking and organized crime, and also terrorism threat problem. Who can help the region to cope with the problems created by the United States and NATO in Afghanistan? 20 years ago, America went into Afghanistan according to the mandate of the Security Council of the UN to reduce terrorist threat, to fight against it. In 20 years, they never reported to the Security Council on their activities. After 20 years, they just fled the country, leaving Afghanistan and the region's countries face to face with this problem. Who can help us coping with these dreadful threats and challenges? As we see, if United States and NATO countries are willing to do so, at least they announced, they fail in that, and they fail in other regions of the world. That's the answer to the question. It's just that, in my opinion, when these questions are articulated, we need to clarify what is the historic background, what are the circumstances, not just try to heat up the theme, saying that, and use the cliche when you describe it. Thank you very much. Let's move forward. Big Asia TV channel. Большая Азия, are you with us? Maria Vladimirovna, hello. So I'm from the Big Asia TV channel. I live in Moscow more than half of my life, and I think that Moscow is my house, my home. Moscow is the best city of the world is my program, where we speak about everything related to Moscow and very strong relations of Moscow with other regions and cities. I broadcasted stories about Moscow diplomacy in Istanbul, Dubai, Baku, China, and other countries. Since the population of cities is growing, I'm interested in how Russia is looking into regional and city diplomacy on the federal level, and how important this type of diplomacy for Russian external policy. What type of diplomacy? Diplomacy of various regions and cities. I mean, how do you see it from the top? You are speaking about public diplomacy. For instance, how the city of Moscow, how it builds regional ties. Regional ties, well, we have an area of activities dedicated to this particular field in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and every day they are contacting our constituent entities, and we are in daily regime support them in their international affairs. We also have meetings of regions with the head of our ministry as a council. It is arranged regularly where they discuss global strategic questions of cooperation of regions of Russia with international global partners, including cross-border cooperation, interregional cooperation, and the collective basis cooperation, public society, economy, and a lot of other areas. This is a large cluster. This is a large part of the activities we are doing in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia. For us, of course, it is very important. Unfortunately, now a block of countries stopped contacts with Russia and Russian regions. I am speaking about the collective West, of course. A lot of projects cut or stopped, and some stop the cooperation in the format of brother cities. But as Mr. Lavrov says, they will go through it and get healthy. So citizens, people will, they really need it. This is about families and historic ties that that were built before. And inside countries of collective West, we see how they want to go away from Russophobia. They are tired. They do not want that anymore. But the regimes continue dominating with their anti-Russian agenda. But why should we focus our attention on these negative things while we have colossal, huge opportunities, and we see results of activities in this area with other countries? I just mentioned our cultural ties with China. They are going also on the level of regions. We have a lot of neighboring countries at the south and east with whom we are interacting. But this is not at the border interaction, but this is an interaction on the level of regions and their international activities with countries that share with us approaches towards mutually respectful cooperation on the basis of equality. Another small question. Just recently, my friend from Oxford is now ambassador to Great Britain. Great Britain is perceived as an unfriendly country, but a lot of people are quite friendly. What can we do to feel ourselves welcomed in Russia? What do you mean, sorry? Ambassador and other diplomats, so that they feel welcomed in Russia, feel that they're guests in Russia. Okay, let's do it together. What should we do for an ambassador of what country so that they feel here more comfortable? Well, it is about who comes to us with what. Alexander Nevsky spoke about it. If you come to us with a sword, you will not feel comfortable here. If you come to us with an open heart, with interesting projects, who come to us with respect towards our nation, our country, will also feel welcomed. They will feel at home. We will feed and give you drinks and even give you shelter. Thank you. Yes, please. Hello. Sekendobe.
African Media, For You Media Africa from Cameroon in Central Africa. I have two questions that I will ask in French and will be translated in Russian. Première question, madame. Avec les relations aujourd'hui qui s'approfondissent entre la Russie, mais aussi le continent africain, est-ce qu'il n'y a pas de possibilité pour la Russie d'ouvrir des banques en Afrique pour faciliter les transactions financières et économiques et surtout sans intermédiaire?
First question. Considering deepening relations between Russia and Africa, do you look into an opportunity to open up a representative of a Russian bank in Africa to ease financial and economic operations without intermediaries? As for opening a rep offices of banks, Russian banks in African countries, we do not cross out such an opportunity for cooperation, but it depends not only on Russia, but the interest of African partners and legal specificities of national legal and regulation basis. We need to understand also the amount of efforts to be spent by the West to prevent such developments. We see the pressure exerted on many countries of the world and economic operators, but for us, this theme is interesting, and we will interact with African countries, African operators who are also interested in this. At the same time, Russia is looking into various options of simplifying trade and financial operations with African partners. In the level of central banks, we look into opportunities to increase settlements in national currencies and setting direct interbank corresponding ties, building sustainable, reliable payment infrastructure. And this work will strengthen Russia-Africa trade and cooperation ties of our companies and local economic operators. Russia is interested in development of multipolar, mutually beneficial trade and finance relations with African countries, and the leadership of Russia during Russia-Africa summit and during the meetings of ministers of foreign affairs of our country with African countries, we again can repeat that we're ready to work with the African continent to improve sustainability and the security of trade exchange between our countries. And again, I would like to refer to the announcement made by the Russian Federation President Vladimir Putin at plenary session of the summit Russia-Africa. And the second question, in Africa, we are attentively looking at special military operation in Ukraine, which is a lesson for Africa. We also see how Russia is helping some African countries to fight against terrorism in Central African Republic, Mali, Nigeria, Burkina Faso. Can Russia increase the help to Africa in preventing and stopping terrorism? First of all, we are very thankful for your balanced assessment of the developments happening in the world that is articulated and shared by African countries. We see that this is not a conditional approach, but the one based on history and careful attitude towards what Africa, how Africa perceived our country, the relations that are rare to see today. It's hard to stay thankful and preserve your historical memory. And among African countries, we see and hear words of thankfulness, and we feel that this is part of national idea, national policy. We can say cultural code of Africa, not to forget about your past, not only remembering the suffering that the African nations went through, but remember and be thankful to those who helped in fighting against this colonial burden in Africa. I know a lot of examples, and you know them as well, when countries and nations went through not less complicated historical developments, genocide and oppression of various types. But afterwards, they fixed in their historical memory only the facts of their sufferings. But information and data and facts about who helped them to overcome the challenges just erased as if nothing happened. It didn't happen in Africa, and this is so surprising. And you know, point number two I wanted to mention. From one Western politician, I heard a phrase saying that Western civilizations have a gene of democracy, a gene of freedom. I see that the collective West today, especially the European Union, lost any freedom. I'm not speaking about democracy, considering that they were never enslaved or colonized, and their nations never acted as commodities. Look at Africa. For hundreds of years, countries of the African continents were colonized, enslaved. Africans were sold as commodities. Even worse than that, commodities are perceived quite cautiously, quite carefully, not like slaves. And looking at that past, Africa turns out to have this gene of freedom. using the Western terminology, and you act as free people, as they act in complicated situations, basing on historical memory, national interests, the feeling of the sense of justice, of responsibility, of respect and equality. Of course, I wanted to mention that. And as for fighting terrorism, you're absolutely right, saying that our country helped and is still helping a lot of African countries to counteract terrorist threat. And this is, first of all, relevant for Sahel region countries who suffer from terrorism the most. Russia has always responded to requests of official authorities of countries, and we will continue cooperation and our assistance to countries in preparation of the armed forces and military forces, law enforcement, and we'll continue to develop our scientific and technical military cooperation with the countries of the continent. And we see how valued it is among the countries of Africa. I mean, I'm speaking about the results of such cooperation between our countries. And we are also very serious about cooperating with African countries in fighting terrorism. And a powerful additional impulse in this area is the adopted at the second summit Russia-Africa hosted by St. Pete in 2023, the declaration on strengthening cooperation in fighting against terrorism. And as for the 9 to 10 November this year, the meeting in Sochi, the first ministerial conference Russia-Africa, will plan to discuss also joint steps in counter-terror activities, and special thematic events will be arranged. Russia will continue increase practical cooperation, training and preparation of law enforcement and legal bodies of countries of Africa to counteract modern challenges on multilateral and bilateral basis. And in this context, we want to mention the successes and prospects of a project initiated by Russia, UN unit for counteracting terrorism and supplies of armaments. Within the framework of the project, Russian development and experiences shared with African countries, we co-financed the second phase of initiative of this unit for strengthening the potential of countries to set up national and regional mechanisms to prevent and counteract terrorism. And the recipients of this initiative should be the countries of South Africa and Great Lakes region. So, colleagues, let's have a couple of questions more from the audience, because I have to go to another plenary session.
So, good afternoon again. What's your view of the relations of Russia and Arab countries at the present time? So it's not a short or idle question. Well, of course, promising bilaterally and multilaterally. You have a big potential of development in economy, finances, security, international, humanitarian spheres. And we can see that that's joint interest, mutual interest. And we can see that these relationships are reviewed as such by the countries of the region. And we, in my perspective, have civilization objectives to preserve the cultural code of our countries and people's traditional values, which is also one of the main objectives of the countries you mentioned. So I think that that's quite a powerful sphere of mutual interest. That's very brief. So, the voice of fatherland. So, do you think that Russia should get aligned on the use of nuclear weapons with former Soviet republics? Whether Russia is to get aligned, with the former Soviet republics? Well, I think that's a sensitive question, and I have to I have to address the legal. So very few said about the Uzbek trip of Vladimir Putin, and it was a very high level. And it would be great to have more information about the goals and the agenda. You can go up to the Kremlin.ru website. There was information. If you have some specific questions, please provide information to my colleagues, and we will give you. Thank you very much. A lot is said about the Zelensky regime as a puppet regime, and Russia is in the hot phase of contradiction with USA and West. What should happen? The states to be declared our official enemy. It is already declared as our adversary. So if it's the question of stylistics, well, I don't think that you're interested in well, I mean, if it's substantive attitude of Russia, well, it is already declared in relation not only to USA, but also those who are waging unfriendly policy. There are some other gradations, yes, in respect to the steps and activities that countries make. It's not only a matter of language, it's just the national business. My well, a little bit of positive. Well, I think I've given so much positivity. Many Anglo-Saxons want to cooperate and be friends with Russia. Some wanted to come to Russia for St. Pete Forum, but did not but were not given permission from their countries. Can Foreign Ministry give us information on the context of such people living in the States? And well, Scott Ritter, they were just dragged out of the plane. Not unique, of course. There were examples like that. But Scott Ritter was dragged out of the plane. Well, it's, you know, all borders were crossed. It's not just a warning. It's physical impossibility for the person to leave the territory of the United States. What will happen next? Are they going to get him welded to a radiator, to the heat radiator? Well, for them not to participate in different fora. Well, the essence of this problem, you know, is that it's not just they are talked out of it. They are just intimidated. They are afraid of even talking as to what happens to them. Well, if there are some examples when we will not damage or make harm, I will, of course, articulate it. Ivan Gorbachev. You already dwelled upon the information attacked on the Fund of Protection of Compatriots. Can you give us more details as to what is the aim, according to the Foreign Ministry, of attacks to on our funds? I've mentioned it. It's intimidation, block their work, make the economic operators to refuse to cooperate, for compatriots not to address the fund, to make it marginalized. Well, it's part of information war, which is in its turn is part of hybrid war against Russia. So those who were online, I will be happy to answer your questions in the written form. So thank you very much. I have to recap because thank you very much. Wish you all best. Thank you.